So today we are just making it's very basic ramen noodles, and so we talk about ingredients, right? Talk about the ingredients, and this is wheat flour, and like when we have like wheat flour for ramen noodles, the protein content is important, right? Protein content, it's not as high as like protein content flour that's usually used for like bread flour, or like typical like the one we used, that one that was in has like protein content of like maybe like 10.5 to like 0.12%. Then ash content is like quite low, like 0.4%, and should have like viscosity of like 800, like 750 to like 900 BU per penta unit. And we have this is a solid, and these three are liquid, and salt, constantly, and water. Okay. And so this machine is called rich men machine. And men means of course like noodles and like rich noodles machine. And it has this mixer, right? Mixer that's 10 kilograms mixer. And but like the minimum batch this mixer can do is like 4 kilograms of solid ingredients, right? So, and on top of it, you're adding liquid. And so the constantly and salt needs to be dissolved in the water, right? And so we are making this kind of like a solution, constantly and salt, like solution water, and then we're gonna add it to the flour mixing process. So the mixing speed, right, is 60 rotations per minute, this mixer. And we talked about like kind of optimal mixing speed, right? And so we'll kind of like do the kind of air mixing, like which, just the solid ingredients is mixed, right? And then we'll add the liquid. And you can see the liquid is like kind of drip through the holes, right? The small holes to the flour. So sort of like kind of, being added to the flour like a little by little to render well, it's like good hydration. Like we want to hydrate the dough. I mean the solid ingredients like a little by little. Um, Otherwise, we're gonna end up like having like a dough that's like wet, more wet in this area than the other parts. So it's not good. So that's why we want to add liquid, right, bit by bit to facilitate some like good hydration. And I love to watch, right? I love to watch the mixing, right? I can probably keep watching like for maybe like 20 minutes, right, straight. But like no, well, we don't want to waste your time. So like she make me made prepare the dough in advance. And exactly the same recipe. So this dough is like 36% hydration. And then look at how she put the dough in a plastic bag, right? Plastic bag. And shield the plastic bag, right, to keep the dough from losing the moisture. So that's how you sort of like rest the dough. That was the first resting. It was first resting, right? And in terms of noodles, there are like it's 36% hydration ratio. Um, this is sort of like kind of we call like medium hydration ratio noodles, that are great for ramen noodles, especially like shoyu ramen, like kind of like sort of Tokyo style shoyu ramen, or like even like Sapporo, like miso ramen noodles. We can make them curly and like um, use them for like miso ramen. And so the first process, right? So what we are trying to do is like we want to like, because this is dough is like kind of drier, right? Drier side. So again, like remember, like less water you have, like the more pressure we need to apply, right, to build the muscle, right? So that's why we want to first like make force these crumbles dough into like sheet of dough, right? And then but like the roller gap, so there are two rollers, right? And then like we can control the roller gap in between them. And then the roller gap we set was like 1.5 millimeter. And so for this type of like medium hydration rich noodles, we set the roller gap to 1.5 millimeter. And because the size of dough is like kind of relatively big, right? And then and we want to apply like kind of right amount of pressure for this hydration ratio. And if you're doing like lower hydration ratio, like 28%, 25%, like sort of like Hakata style, like tonkotsu noodles, we set the roller gap to smaller gap, right? Narrower gap, so like 1 millimeter, because we want to apply bigger pressure, right? We want to apply bigger pressure, so that less hydration, the bigger pressure we have to apply to build muscle. That's why. And then higher hydration noodles like ramen noodles, for example, like 40%, like tsukemen noodles, like dipping noodles. We widen the roller gap, right? Initial roller gap to like maybe like 2 millimeter, right? So like the size of crumbles, the dough like it's bigger, and then we want to apply like less pressure, less force. Um, Otherwise, like we may like end up like breaking the muscle in the muscle in the dough. So we wanna reduce the amount of like pressure that we apply to the dough, like for I mean when we're doing like high hydration ratio noodles. So you have to like kind of control. You have to control like amount of pressure, amount of force that you are applying to the dough when developing the perfect noodle dough. Yeah, you have to like think about kind of muscle like we're building, right? If you're like whether or not like we're building like we're damaging the muscle or like it's like workout, right? It's like exercising and then like um, having like proper rest and then yeah, so it's very similar. Like it works in a very similar way, right? So that's the first process. It's like maybe just rough sheet of dough, right? And but like this is still the dough is like still pretty weak, after we do this process. And so how we can make it like stronger, right? How we can like develop like more muscle inside dough, right? So that's the process like we sort of like talked about in the lecture. So we separate it, right? We separate the dough. We separate this like sheet of dough into two parts, two sheets, right? Two separate sheets, and then combine them, right? Combine them through the roller gap. So this way we can again like work work the muscle of the dough. So we're gonna feed them, right? We're gonna feed into roller gap, and then yeah, maybe go. And then like that was like 1.5 millimeter initial roller gap, right? And then but she's me setting it to 2 millimeter this time around because like each sheet is supposed to be like 1.5 millimeter in thickness, and but like we're combining, right? We're combining like two separate sheets into one. So you can see that like there's like 1.5 millimeter those sheet is going in, right? So that's like equivalent of like 3 millimeter, right? 3 millimeter. Um, and then, we want to apply the right amount of pressure, right? I talk about like otherwise, like we may be like damaging the muscle, right? So we want to use this um, the rule, like we came up with like through years of like experimentations, and like trial and errors to develop like good noodle dough. Is that like we apply this rule of like 30% rule, 30% reduction rule. So like every round of thinning, we reduce the thickness roller gap by 30%, 30%. So that's supposed to be like 3 millimeter, right? Equivalent on dough sheet. And if you roll it at like 1.5 millimeter, like that's too much pressure, right? We probably break the muscle. So we want to reduce it by just by 30%. So 30%, so that's like 0.9 millimeter. So we just subtracted 0.9 millimeter from the 3 millimeter, right? So that's 2.1 millimeter, but like just make it simple, and then rounding it down to like 2.0 millimeter. So that's why we set the roller gap to 2 millimeter. And it's amazing like how the those surface is like now like a lot smoother than before, right? So it's like building the muscle, right? It's building muscle, like it's getting firmer, it's getting more firm, right? And then you know, and then I think we think like this dough can take another round of like muscle building. So we do another round of like this combining process again, and that was like 2 millimeter roller gap that this dough went through, right? So like each sheet is supposed to be like 2 millimeter in thickness, and so we are putting two sheets together, right? So like that's 2 millimeter thickness dough plus 2 millimeter thickness dough. So that's supposed to be like four, right? 4 millimeter equivalent dough is going in. And again, we apply this 30% rule. And so that's 1.2 millimeter subtraction from the 4 millimeter. And that makes it like 2.8 millimeter. But like, again, like for the simplicity, right? We round it up to 3. So that's why I mean we like set the roller gap to 3 millimeter. And from this point on, right, we want the dough, this dough to, um, you know, want the dough to like keep from like sticking. Um, the hydration ratio is like a really, really high or like medium. So there's a risk that these dough like stick together. So we want to start dusting from this point on. And then this machine has like this automatic duster that let you dust like automatically, and then at the volume, at the like dusting volume that you want. And of course, like higher the hydration, like more wet the dough, the more you want to dust, right? And so that was the second combining process, right? And as we talked about in the lecture, um, this goes into the second resting process. So you need to just sort of wrap the dough around with this like plastic bag, right? And to make sure that like the dough don't like lose any moisture, wouldn't dry out, right? So and then So we have this rack that you that can hold the dough sheet like this, right? And we can probably let it sit for like 1 hour at room temperature. And I'd love to wait for another hour for that to be ready, right? But like unfortunately, we don't have that much time today. So she prepared the dough that's done for second resting process. So again, like remember, like that was like 3 millimeter roll gap, right? It's gone through like after the, I mean, when we're doing like a second combine process. So, we're going from three to two, because like, because of 30% reaction rule. So three to 2 millimeter roll gap. So this process is sort of like kind of beyond the scope of this class, but like basically like after, well, we're done with the dough development, like so well, it's well, dough now has like a lot of muscles, right? A lot of muscles, like so, well, all we have to care about from this point on is that like we should not damage this muscle that we've developed so far. So that's why we want to apply this 30% reduction rule. It's sort of like gradually thin it to the final thickness. So that was 2 millimeter, right? And so the next like 30, using a 30% reduction rule. But like first, like let's measure the actual thickness, and then that's like 2.5 millimeter. And see the difference, right? See the difference between like actual thickness and the roller gap that we set, like 2 millimeter, and but like actual thickness like 2.5 or 6. So there's a difference of like 0.5, 0.6 millimeter. And so the dough is like always like bounces back, right? So after it's gone through the roller gap, it always bounces back. So that this particular dough like bounces back by 0.5, and then yeah, she's gonna cut it. She's gonna cut it right first with this cutter like number 16. It's like about like 2 millimeter in width, and then it has this parts in the back of the cutter, right? To make the noodles come out curly, like wavy noodles. Right, so all set, and conveyor, everything is all set. And another feature that kind of want to talk about is that like you can set it to the cutter mode now, right? And then like so this machine is like ready to cut the noodles, right? And then so that dough sheet is like kind of like being fed into the cutter, and then see like it's coming out, and this is so now you can see that like it's all like curly and stuff, right? And then they're all curly, right? And then you can, well, these are very very curly, right? And like it's as curly as like maybe like Mission Cup noodle or something, but like It's you can actually control the curliness of the noodles. You can make them lighter, you make them like even curlier. It's up to you. And then you can of course like change the serving size automatically, and by like change the length of the noodles. That's just a touch of the volume. So that's I think these noodles are very good for with like kind of shoyu type ramen noodles, and then like of course like kind of miso ramen noodles as well. So that's how you make yeah, this type of noodles, ramen noodles, like these curly ramen noodles. And then I wish you guys can try them because the texture is perfect. It's exactly the kind of texture like we visualized when we thought about making them. Again, like you have to start with an end in mind, to create, make, let develop like kind of noodles that you want to make. You need to visualize. You need to like think about like what kind of noodle texture you want your customers to experience, right? That everything starts from there, and then you should be able to like end up like making great noodles. All right, so I think like just was like foundation of like noodles, and then making like perfect noodle doughs like is the starting point, and was actually a lot to cover, right? It's a lot to cover, and I hope I was clear on the like important points. But like if you have like any questions, or like if you have like anything that you wanna explore more about, please feel free to contact us, and then I'll be like more than happy to like share more information with you guys.